guests, panellists and delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. It's my absolute pleasure to be here this morning at Capital M, which is itself an Australian icon in Beijing, to take part in the opening of the inaugural Australia-China Youth Dialogue. I'd just like to begin by conveying the warm congratulations of the Australian Ambassador to China, Dr. Jeff Raby, who regrettably wasn't able to be with us today. But it's really delightful to note the high calibre of the youth delegates, both from Australia and from China. They really, I think, reflect the diversity and the energy and the global outlook of young people today. Youth, of course, make a very positive contribution, a very valuable contribution to the bilateral relationship between Australia and China. And it's very pleasing that so many institutions and organisations and individuals have offered their support to this dialogue. The Australia-China relationship is strong and enduring. Of course, the closeness of our economic and trade relationship is most often under the microscope. And of course now China is Australia's largest trading partner, with our two-way trade reaching 85 billion Australian dollars last financial year. But of course our positive ties are also due in large part to the efforts that both of our countries have made to engage in meaningful exchange and dialogue at the people-to-people level. Now, just to give you a couple of statistics that you might have heard already recently, last year there were well over 300,000 Chinese visitors to Australia, and currently there are around 120,000 Chinese students studying in Australia. And I also believe about 250,000 Australians have visited China in the past 12 months. So obviously we all have a shared interest in fostering this closer interaction between Australia and China. Of course, with the goal, ultimately, of supporting both regional and global security and prosperity. Now, while governments play a key role, of course, civil society is a very important means of transforming dialogue into real and meaningful outcomes across all aspects of our relationship. So it could be in the business and trade relationship, it could be in scientific and technological advances, perhaps in political or educational exchanges, sporting, cultural exchanges, and also, of course, in addressing the regional and global challenges that are of common concern to both our countries. Things from, for example, from climate change right through to nuclear proliferation and security issues. So at this point, I'd just like to acknowledge the dialogue's core partners and co-organisers, the Australia-China Youth Association, ACYD, and of course the All China Youth Federation and China University Media Union, for their vision and understanding of the importance of international dialogue in bringing together this group of extremely talented young future leaders from across a range of fields. Now I just want to give you a little anecdote, but around 25 years ago, when I myself was young and was studying Chinese language at university in Australia, I really wish now, looking back, that I had been able to access a network like ACYD and to have had the tools to reach out to other like-minded young people who also shared an interest in Australia-China linkages. Like today's young people, we also travelled frequently to China to interact with and learn from our Chinese counterparts. And believe it or not, we managed to form many valuable networks for the future. And I think it's amazing that we could do that despite having no internet, no Skype, no Kai Wong, and no email. But today, obviously, we have technological tools that we never dreamed of just a few short years ago that make the interactions between our young people much easier and more frequent. So I think young Australians and Chinese are using these tools and of course their own resources to harness and share their personal experiences, their knowledge resources and their individual views. And organisations like ACYD and CUMU provide an important platform for such ongoing interaction. The Australian Embassy is particularly pleased that the inaugural Youth Dialogue is taking place under the platform of Imagine Australia, the Year of Australian Culture in China. Imagine Australia forms the first year of a 2-year bilateral initiative between the Australian government and the Chinese government. It was launched by Australia's Governor-General in June in Beijing, and over the next 12 months it will bring together events as part of Australia's largest ever cultural promotion in China that are themed on not just music and performing and visual and digital arts, but also things like literature, Australian studies, cultural heritage, sporting and academic exchanges. And it will be followed, of course, by a reciprocal year of Chinese culture in Australia. I just want to tell you a little bit more about Imagine Australia. Imagine Australia is not really just a random scattering of cultural events. It's been very strategically designed to promote several underlying themes in Australia-China relations: collaboration, youth, innovation, and regional outreach. So by focusing on cultural activities that reflect these themes, we aim to maximise our cultural diplomacy outcomes for our investment in this initiative and to promote positive images of Australia in China. So for governments today, cultural and public diplomacy are very key elements of influence building. And I think that some of the speakers in the dialogue might touch on these issues. Interestingly, I've noted that China's awareness of the impact of its own public diplomacy programs overseas is also rapidly growing, and China is investing very heavily in this area as well. So by supporting collaborative and youth-focused activities such as today's dialogue, both countries are helping to ensure that we can forge sustainable and knowledge-building and long-lasting linkages that will grow our relationship into the future. And just to finish off, just like Australia, China is a very large country. And as I just mentioned, Imagine Australia aims also to reach out to China's fast-growing second-tier and third-tier regions. So we want to go beyond Beijing and Shanghai and the big cities, because these parts of China contribute greatly to the economic and cultural life of this country. So while I do express the hope that this dialogue will continue on a regular basis, but I also hope that it will extend its reach into many different corners of China in the future to take account of these developments. So that's just one thought to leave you with. But finally, congratulations to everyone involved. Thank you, and I hope that you get a lot out of the next 3 days. Thanks.